This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Jacob Wilson today, Chris Allman, who is the normal Monday maniac, replaced for the next couple of Mondays by Jacob Wilson, who is part of our rotation, a dependable part, a guy who steps in whenever I need him to, and who I've known for a long time. So if you're just seeing Jacob for the first time, where you've been, he's been with us quite a bit. But Jacob, we had it was an interesting weekend in college football. There's only one game of note, which is Army-Navy, which was a classic.
It's exactly what people watching that game wanted to see.
Yeah. Here's Amanda and I were watching it, and she's like, this game is kind of boring. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, based on modern football, it's boring. But the cool thing about Army-Navy to me is it's the closest thing to, original football that you can get. So, Conan O'Brien did this one time, and then this, I believe the same group, came through Waco because I did the PA announcing for it. But there's, old-timey baseball teams that, travel
through. Talk like this, see?
It's not even that. It's they play with the old rules where they don't play with gloves and, if you hit, if you throw the ball at a guy in the field, he's out, kind of thing. You can't hit him in the face, but, those things. So there's no real old-timey – you can't do old-timey football because people used to, die. So you can't do that. But Army-Navy to me is, the old school of, the reporter would have been like, Army had to throw 17 times in the game. Navy responded with 18 throws of their own. And so that was how it was just so different. And then it was, it came right down to the end. 1 foot from Navy, not tying the game because it was 17-9. And they would have had to get the 2. So
I believe anyone who bet the over on that was excited about the safety at the end of the game. I believe that is the case.
Yes, yeah. The safety hit the over, so 17-11. But it was a classic. It was old school. If you're a football person, like the people in this room are, then you loved it. If you're my wife and you like football and you tolerate as much as we watch because you married me, then it was kind of like, man, there's nothing happening in this game. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but
it's a blend of, for people like us and also just people who want to feel patriotic too.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's it's unbelievable in that, and you'll have your, I always root for Army because my dad was in the Army. My granddad was in the Air Force, and when they play either of those two teams, there's not near as much pageantry because the Air Force is the Johnny-come-lately to all this.
Yes.
All the way back in 31.
We've got a bomb burner here.
They're newbies. The Space Force game I can't wait for. But anyway, you were in the Marines, so does that mean that you're a Navy guy or?
Well, I went to college at Baylor and I joined the Marine Corps. And so if I have to choose between Army Navy, I guess I pick Navy just because a lot of those players commission as Marines.
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing that makes me nudge Navy's direction. But other than that, I'm pretty neutral.
Okay. Yeah, I usually root for Army. Again, I'm pretty neutral on it, but my dad was in the Army. My granddad was technically in the Army because he joined before they invented the Air Force. And then when they said, hey, you can make $4 extra a week if you join the Air Force, he's like, $4? Let's go.
Sign me up.
Let's go. That's a shiny new Model T.
And for some reason, you're going to get treated way better in the Air Force, too. It's going to be cush.
In 1938, I don't think it was.
I think it probably still was.
Yeah. But there are but it was a great game. I thought it was really interesting, and for Navy to do it also with a backup quarterback, where you have to put a backup quarterback in who runs the option, and then hey, we're gonna have to throw 15 times to even get back in this game. For him to get warm enough to where that worked, it was impressive. It was good. So it was a good game. It's the best game you're ever gonna watch between 2 5 and 6 teams. That's for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been really lopsided year in and year out. one of the teams is having a good year and the other is having a terrible year. And so it was cool to see them actually head-to-head, the same record. I was all for it. It was a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we are in the off season now, essentially, Jacob. I know that where it's bowl season and all that, but the bigger stories are not the bowls coming up, which as transfer portal opt-outs, the college football playoff makes them more and more meaningless than they already were. And I'm a person who loves watching a good football game, but given my recent trauma, just don't care.
You can hate the committee and the powers that be for their greed because that's ultimately what led to the top 4. But I think that those other bowl games that are, in the long run irrelevant, those are not going to go away because if they bring in money, they're still going to exist.
Well, they're also a huge grift for the local communities and the bowl committees, and
I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you that there was a time in my life where you've told me FSU is going to the Orange Bowl. I'd been like, awesome, and now I'm just like, whatever.
Just flaccid.
Who cares? Yes. Who cares? It'd be like, hey, who's the live music at the bar? And oh, it's just one dude playing the piano without singing. And you're like, all right, whatever. Oh, it's not the fun band that brings you up on stage. No, it's not that. It's so, because it means nothing for Georgia or for Florida State. The only thing you can make it mean for Florida State is, okay, if they beat Georgia, they'll have a third win in the SEC, but if
anything, they'll probably come out playing pissed off.
Yeah, but
whether that means they're good enough to beat Georgia, that remains to be seen. And the committee had a chance in the last year of the 4-team playoff that, hey, we're going to have the facade of appearing objective. And then, no, they just went and showed their ass.
No, they did. They did. So I've talked about it for a week. I'm significantly traumatized. Garrett's had to listen to me prattle on about every
Rightfully so.
It's just, I'm going to be one of those people that years from now is still is still on this a little bit when something else happens to FSU. 17 years from now, they could be 14th. And I'll be like, it's bullcrap. Mm-hmm. They've been building this up for 17 years. It started in 2023, and here we are in 2040, and it's still going on. Somebody might be like, well, they've won 3 national championships between the times. Oh, shut up. I don't care, because I'll be a crabby old man at that point in my life.
It's trauma. Therapists in Florida are probably, all booked up.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. But we are now to the point of almost the end of the coach hiring cycle, at least the head coach hiring cycle. TCU fired Joe Gillespie, their defensive coordinator, this weekend, so that will be something that they have to take care of. But now we're in the recruiting and assistant moving around thing. So we have early signing day next week, which means assistants will stay until Thursday morning and then they'll leave. Garrett, this is one of the more annoying things about signing day is that, oh yeah, I'll stay with you at Arizona until Thursday morning and then I'm off to Colorado so that, I didn't screw your recruiting class. And then, it's just the other thing about it is, and I will tell this to any kid who's getting recruited, if you are going somewhere because of an assistant coach, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Because, even with the portal being as accessible as it has ever been for players, those coaches are just as mobile too.
Yeah. Don't go to, I remember hearing a kid wanting to get a transfer waiver because the wide receivers coach got fired. I'm like, bro.
That's not how this works.
That's not how it works. The wide receivers coach could have become an offensive coordinator 3 days after he signed you, not knowing that was even going to happen, and then he's going to go take that job. Well, he just got a double of his salary, so, those things bother me, because the natural state of coaching is itinerant. You're not going to be in one place for all that terribly long. Those days are long gone. Anytime you see somebody's he's been the defensive coordinator here for 19 years, you're like, holy crap. That's
the Sabins and the Bowdens and the Belichicks, those are extremely rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, as soon as the wind changes, people get mad and they don't, nobody's Mike Tomlining through things, they're not doing that anymore. Look, it's the best guy for the job. sports are ebbs and, like, which is the most reasonable way to look at it, is how the Rooneys do. Things ebb and flow. Guys get old. Systems change. We'll figure it out. Like, and we don't need to change courses in midstream just willy-nilly, but that's just how it goes. But Jacob, which coaching hire of this cycle do you think will have the most immediate impact?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, it's been kind of an underwhelming coaching carousel here this season, just because there haven't been. We expected half to see A&M make that big splash that they wanted to, but I was actually impressed with them going out and getting a guy who was not only qualified, but they didn't have to flex their wallet on anyone, and they didn't have to be like, hey, we're A&M, we get whoever we want. And I thought Elko was a good one, but I think Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State, I think that's going to be the biggest splash, just because he's bringing that high-powered offense, and they might not win 9-10 games, but I think they're going to score a lot of points.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of hires he makes, or he's made a lot of hires already, but how that staff adjusts, how they recruit in the SEC, how they can keep pace in what is now a harder SEC. Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky kind of live in this area of where Missouri's in this, where you're not the classic powers. Ole Miss is this way, if not for two Mannings playing at I guess three. I don't want to leave out Cooper, but two Mannings being quarterbacks at Ole Miss, a lot of their history is just in the middle of the SEC. That's where they are. And they've got a coach who's a loudmouth now, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
It works for them. They need the exposure.
They needed it. They needed Lane Kiffin to bring attention to their program, but if you go back in the annals of college football history, it's not the pages are not littered with Ole Miss, triumphs.
I mean, you think about the Mannings and you think about the Grove. You don't think about the product that's been on the field.
Yeah, you think about Hugh Freeze, sending text to get yanked off on a company phone. That's
ballin'.
Yeah, I said it out loud.
And that guy is back in the SEC.
I know. Again, Auburn's what's so bad about that?
I had a program with way more history, too.
Auburn's here's $7 million and a burner phone.
Be more subtle this time.
Here's the deal. You know where we got this? Walmart, you jackass. Come on. No. But I like the Jeff Lebby hire. I'm curious because Mississippi State is so behind the rest of not the rest, but they're stuck in this thing where look at that. Dak Prescott a few years ago was he got them all the way. They were number one in the country for a week or two, and then kind of fell off. They've had their moments where they peaked, but they've never been able to sustain it. Most of Mississippi State's biggest wins are ruining some of their team's season.
Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. The reason I think of Lebby though is because he was on. Think what you will about Art Briles, but Jeff Lebby, that's his son-in-law, and he was with him at Baylor. And even in that first year where Robert Griffin was a freshman starting quarterback, they weren't winning games, but there was hope because they were scoring points and looking better than they had really ever. But I think that might not translate to wins in year one, but I think there's going to be some highlights and some points scored.
Well, he's the first Briles guy post-scandal to get a head coaching job. Philip Montgomery was already at Tulsa when all that went down, so he kind of supersedes this. What did catch my eye with Lebby is he didn't just get the band back together. He went out and hired different coaches from around the country, guys who'd been in the SEC. It wasn't I'm just going to, hire my brother-in-law. I'm going to hire this guy and this guy and this guy. There's going to be some people that pop up that you're he's been with before because that's how coaches are. But he is going about it building his own staff and not just rehashing some old things. So I think that's kind of interesting with Jeff, what he's doing at Mississippi State, because my thought was I wonder who he's going to bring from that time, and it's really not been anybody yet, So he's gone out and gotten, for the most part, SEC coaches to be on that staff, which is, I don't think there's some sort of codex you have to break to coach in the SEC if you haven't before.
It just helps if you know the territory and you're
But
familiar.
if you are at Mississippi State,
right,
you probably want some guys who've been at Bama and LSU and Tennessee and stuff like that, so you can maybe, especially since he hasn't been in the league, to help you navigate, especially the specific recruiting area that you're in. Oh, I guess he hasn't been in the league. He was at Ole Miss.
Yeah, he was at Ole Miss. He's familiar.
But he hasn't been in it all that long. It's not like he's a guy like Will Muschamp, who's like a 25-year SEC coach, say for a sojourn at Texas. But no, my best hire to me is Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. I think it's right there, right above Mike Elko. Like Mike Elko did what at A&M was, it just reeks of practicality. And that's what sometimes you don't need to be the drunk guy at the casino going bet it all on a red 25, like they were. Sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go over here and have a nice buffet and take my winnings and sit in my room.
Yeah, you basically walked into the Vegas strip club and said, you know what, I'm just going to go to the buffet, like you mentioned, go back to my room.
Just going to go to the buffet, back to my room. I had some winnings. I'm going to take this. I'm going to try to build on that in a more normal fashion. And that, what they did with Jimbo Fisher was and with Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, Michigan State, Mark D'Antonio was a really good coach for them, but left under scandal. Mel Tucker had a good season for them and then a bad season and left under scandal. They need somebody who is modern college football on the rise, who is not going to leave under scandal. And not to say that again, nobody knew that Hugh Freeze was into what he was into, so I don't know or Mel Tucker, but I really do think here that Jonathan Smith is not a guy who's going to be I apologize to everybody who I've hurt. It's not going to be that. He's a very, very good coach, and he is a young guy who's on the up, as opposed to maybe this worked out for Mel Tucker. Let's give him $9 million. This is a very sensible hire that has a ton of growth potential in a conference where you need to maybe bring in some new blood from outside, because it's getting a ton of new blood from outside, adding 4 new teams this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I don't completely 100% agree with you is just because of the program that Jonathan Smith is inheriting and the state of which that program is kind of in. But I agree with you. It's a fantastic hire for all the reasons that you just said. And he doesn't have any documented sexual harassment suits pending. And so it probably helps the Spartans on that front too, because I just don't know, because he's an Oregon guy. Oregon State guy. That was his alma mater. He knew that area well. I'm sure that he'll be just fine in the, Northwest. No, not Northwest. The Midwest.
Yeah.
And I just think it remains to be seen how quickly he'll get it off the ground.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a little ways to go. Look, they lost all their quarterbacks to the portal, but he's probably going to get a good one. So.
I mean, Well, I mean, we're going to talk about it later, but his quarterback from last year is in the portal.
Yes, I don't think that guy's going there, though. I think his backup quarterback from last year is going there, though. I would bet that he is looking at Aiden Childs or Dante Moore, and I think Dante Moore probably less likely. But
Childs definitely.
But Aiden Childs, I think, will follow him there to Michigan State, and that's a good thing, because he already knows the system and he can hit the ground running. I love the Tulane Houston combo. Obviously, Willie Fritz leaves Tulane and goes to Houston. Tulane hiring John Summerall is a great hire. He's going to do really well at Tulane while he's there, which I don't think will be too terribly long. I think if he keeps Tulane at what Willie Fritz has been doing, which I totally think he will, then he's going to get a bigger job. Willie Fritz at Houston is the nice change of pace for Dana Holgorsen, who the wrong guy at the wrong time for Houston. But it wasn't a bad hire. I don't think it just didn't work.
But he knew the transition, right? I understand the hire from that aspect. If you're Houston, you're going into the Big 12, why don't you bring somebody in who's done it before at West Virginia? I just think that the current landscape of college football paired with that didn't mesh well. As you began the transfer portal and everything else, those were aspects of the new job that Dana didn't like, and that's what ultimately drove him out and didn't allow him to have success in Houston.
Yeah, but I think Willie Fritz can be that guy who makes Houston the team of the city, who can, like that. The one thing I'll tell you that the other candidate was Jeff Traylor, who what he's done at UTSA is he's made UTSA the team of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Fritz can make Houston the team of the city to where kids who grow up in Houston, wouldn't mind playing there. And that's where I think that maybe Dana wasn't the best at keeping Houstonites in Houston. Like you should be getting some of those kids from more of those kids from Katy and North Shore and like those kind of places. That's what he needs to do. I think Willie Fritz will do that. I also think that he's less temperamental. And
Dana Holgorsen became a curmudgeon when he got to Houston, and I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, no, he was maybe seen more of like a kind of a loosey goosey type of dude, right? And then he just wasn't. Right, and then it everything was so up and down when it came to Dana Holgorsen. It was so scattershot, and part of it was like Garrett said, like the rule, like he's the guy for the rules changed. He wasn't the guy to roll with those rules.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
that doesn't mean he's a bad coach or he forgot how to do it, but look, Dabo Swinney might be that guy. Mm-hmm. Like we're kind of seeing him adjust to it right now, and it's. Dabo Swinney's not all of a sudden he had less talent on his Clemson team this year than he ever had, and they still went 8-4. So he still can coach them up. He can still do those things, but at the end of it, he's not making as much money as he is to be 8-4. He's making as much money as he is to be 12, 13-0, like being in the playoff. Like that's where he is. Well, Dana Holgorsen is a lesser version of that, a guy who's not done those things, and just maybe wasn't the guy who wants to deal with, all right, do you want to come to Houston? All right, great. How much can we pay you? Okay, well, how much can we pay this guy? Oh, I've got to get this kid $150,000. Great. Do we have $150,000? Okay, we have 95. Can you do it for 95? No, you can't do it for 90. Like, that's not Dana Holgorsen's thing.
Reminds me of the movie Knocked Up, where Paul Rudd they're in the bathroom. Paul Rudd walks up to his wife and he's, "Want to have sex tonight?" Like, yeah. It's kind of that dynamic, and so it's good for everyone that they've moved on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is. It's just to that point, and I think Willie Fritz will bring a lot of balance there. Here's the other good news for Houston on Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz this is probably his last job. I mean, he's not. If he does well here, he'll retire at Houston.
Well, he also said he was going to retire at Tulane.
Yeah, but he didn't think that Houston was coming, right?
But I think Tulane. I think you could make an argument that the Tulane job, if it's about getting into the playoff, is better than Houston.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because all you got to do is be the best group of 5 team and get in, whereas Houston, you got to navigate the Big 12. You're struggling. So I think it's to me, it's not about wins and losses when it comes to Willie Fritz taking the job. That's something bigger. I'm just not sure what it is, because I think he would have had a better opportunity of making the playoff if he would have stayed at Tulane. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, but this is also more money and
I know.
And it's an easier place to recruit. At Houston, you would think, but and they're in the Big 12's Power 5, so that's just not.
I mean, to your point, Garrett, it's a bigger challenge and just a bigger opportunity.
Yeah. So it's a bigger opportunity, and this will probably be the last place Willie Fritz is. So not surprised with that. When we come back, which coach needs a good year in 2024? I'm not talking about hot seat guys, but guys who need to, either continue the positive momentum they had or finally get some, in year 2 or 3 in their program. Or, I'll throw out a name like Neil Brown. Like, he's 8-4. He had some positive momentum. He cannot take any kind of step back. He has to at least be 8-4 is his floor now, unless something like crazy happens that you can excuse away. But who needs a good year in 2024. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back to the Triple Option. Jacob Wilson alongside. Jacob, which coach do you think needs some positive momentum in 2024?
I mean, I know that this isn't a hot seat specific segment, but as a Baylor alum, I can't leave my own headspace. I got to say, Dave.
We'll get it out, and then we can move onto the next ones.
Dave Aranda, for the love of God, that team quit so early in this season that he needs to bring this team with some momentum. Some life.
I would push back on the term quit. I would say stalled. Like they hit their ceiling really, really fast. Like the second quarter against Texas State was about what it was going to be, and
watching that team was like pulling teeth. It was it was just frustrating. You never had the feeling that they were, when they were down, that they could possibly come back, even though they did it once against UCF.
Yeah.
But they just there was no identity to the team. There was no, and it was kind of coming off of a downswing from 2022, you know.
Yeah.
And so if there's anyone that needs to level out and trend up, it's got to be him.
Yeah. We've talked about him at length a lot. I mean, he was here. You were here in the studio the day he did the interview, and
couldn't have been nicer.
No, and the thing is, you hear the things that maybe he is going to change. Like, they're not going to wait to start spring football, clearly. Usually they've kind of given some time. Well, now you've got to put a new offensive system. They need to get, right to it. So as soon as they can do spring football, they're going to do spring football. Those kind of a thing.
Hire Tony Robbins or somebody to get in that locker room and motivate them.
Yeah, I don't know. We had Bryson Jackson on last week.
Yeah.
And he said that that's not necessarily the issue, which means that the issue is they've got to get players that are better.
That's also a huge part of it.
Yeah.
That, and he said there was a disconnect in the leadership. That there were so many young guys, there was a disconnect that didn't register there. But all the vibes I've gotten since Spavital, really since the year ended, everything has seemed a lot more positive, and there's been more excitement going into now. I don't know what that is. If it's just we all know what it is, you've got to win and or it's a make or break time. But I feel more confident heading into this season than I did about heading into this past one.
Yeah, I do. I think that they've taken a look that they had put off taking.
Yeah,
kind of you've gone up a couple of pant sizes before you get in the gym, as opposed to just staying in the gym. That's kind of the look that they're taking. Or the doctor tells you your cholesterol is through the roof. Okay. They needed to hear those things before they looked at what was going on.
Yeah.
And they've got to change up things that they're doing for sure. But I was one of the things I think Mario Cristobal needs to. Now look, I think he's got a little bit more runway because Miami is so far behind. they're behind. Like USF is going to build a new stadium before Miami builds a new stadium. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that can't happen.
Like, how are you just in your own state, trying to compete in your own state that you used to own? Like, how can everybody else, including teams that you didn't even have to think about before, jump in line to make things better at their program before you do? Like that's where Miami is right now. And the easiest thing to throw money at right now is NIL, because you don't have to build anything. You just have to go like, here you go.
Yeah.
But that hasn't worked out for them yet. Their quarterback position's been really inconsistent. Now, they are a better roster from 2022 to 2023, but they still were not good at the places they needed to be good at to win consistently. I think he needs to, particularly at the quarterback position, make a splash in the portal. And if it is just a one-year stopgap, that's fine, because then maybe that one-year stopgap guy can get you to the next guy. But I would think they need to maybe look at one of those guys. Like, I think Elijah Moore, if I'm Mario Cristobal, and I think he's going to visit there, like, becomes maybe a top priority for me, because this is a guy I can have for a couple years and help me reestablish Miami as a program. But, man, I think he needs to show something, especially given how badly the season turned after Georgia Tech, and how, they beat Clemson. They had some other things, but, when that Georgia Tech happened, then all of a sudden the scrutiny is on him. It's like, okay, so not only do you not have the players you need yet, but if you did, there's no guarantee we're going to win games because you're making these ridiculous decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how fortunate he is that he didn't inherit the U and the U Part 2 era teams.
Yeah.
He inherited a Miami program that was down, and so that made his leash a little bit longer. But, yeah, that brain fart against Georgia Tech, that set the tone for the rest of their season. And, I wouldn't say he's a hot seat guy, but, yeah, that's another really good example of someone who needs a good year.
Yeah, he needs a good year. I mentioned Neil Brown before. He's got to continue on that path. Like, he doesn't, these are all three guys that are in kind of different spots. Like, Neil Brown showed what he can do. Now he's got to keep showing what he can do. And the schedule's going to get weird. The schedule's going to get weirder. That they navigated through a really tough schedule for them, at least on the outset this year, and went 8-4. But now with the way that, and this is how conference realignment is going to change anything, you're not going to be lucky enough to be like, oh, hey, man, we get to play this team who's stuck in, there's no, old school bad Kansas that you get to play every year anymore where you can chalk up that win. You might get them 2 years in a row, but you're not going to get them 8 years in a row. So those things are going to change. I think I've seen enough from Neil Brown to think that he can handle it. They've got to keep on recruiting there, and he has to stay, and I think he's probably done a better job of it this year than years past, but he also had 2 years of, and this might have been his fault, I don't know, but where they lost 30 guys in the portal like that, and so it was, including some of his better players, guys who he was relying on. One of Lynn J. Dixon left and then didn't play anywhere else. Those are the decisions that all right, well, but he would have played at West Virginia. It's all those weird things that kind of happened to them all at once that set up for their bad run. But he was 8-4. Now, I don't think that the people in Morgantown are okay, all's forgiven, you're 8-4. But they've now put him back on hey, this is where you need to be.
Well, it also didn't help anything that now Jimbo is sitting out there waiting, buying his time until he returns to the sideline somewhere. It's inevitable, right? He's going to get another opportunity. But if you're a West Virginia fan, I think you got to feel really confident about the amount of talent that you have returning next year. Now, you just can't fall into the same boat where, and I know it's a different level of success that we're talking about here, but you can't fall into what Baylor did and what TCU have done where you take major step backs after having success. You got to continue to build on that. But I think having pretty much essentially his whole offensive line coming back, his quarterback, his skill players, I think he's got a lot of talent to work with that can help him continue to go. But there is little room for error given that fan base that, for whatever reason, just isn't ready to buy into him. I think he's a tremendous coach. I don't know why they're so apprehensive to just fall in love and say Neil Brown's our guy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, but I do think that, like, you could be a little bit calmer going into this year than last year. Yeah. And not worry about, maybe he's on the hot seat. He's got to do this or that. Chip Kelly is one that needs a good year. I don't know, like, he's going to have a really good year because I do think he's run afoul of he's in that spot of where the big wigs don't really care for his personality. And, he has not won enough. Like, I think they've told him, like, listen, you've got to win more to be this much of a jerk. Like, you could, like, you can't, and even then, like I've said on this show many times, like every time somebody throws out Urban Meyer or whatever for a coaching job or Gary Patterson, I'm like, man, first of all, they're older dudes now, but Urban not so much, but the years of the days of the dictator coaches are over. Like they're just over. Like you can still be a tough guy and be the supreme leader of a program like Nick Saban, but you better be smart about it. Like you better absolutely be smart about it. Like you
win.
Yeah. And you got to win a lot, but Saban's not like that though. Like Saban's really smart, but he's not like rule with an iron fist kind of a dude.
He's very adaptable.
He's adaptable as opposed to like.
There's footage of him as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins making grown men cry, but like he said, he's adaptable and he's not. I mean, that's not his reputation anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he's adaptable. So like, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's not always been like, just like having a little like ducky to play with. Look at this guy.
Hey,
but
work for Tony Soprano, right?
Yeah, but he's adaptable. As where Gary Patterson was not adaptable. He did not, and he's like every time there's a job with Gary Patterson, like nobody's gonna hire. Like I don't want to say nobody. Like it could happen, but it's not probably going to happen because that day is gone. So like when Chip Kelly's gone at UCLA, that day is over. Now you can still be a tough guy head coach. Like there's plenty of those guys, but you better be like the heck. It's kind of all of like Jimbo Fisher. Out. Like Jimbo Fisher's staff was a bunch of those guys. It was DJ Durkin and Steve Adazio and like these gruff, grumpy ass head coaches that are now assistants because why do you want Steve Adazio as your head coach? Like it's all also about fundraising now too, right? Mm-hmm. Your head coach has to fundraise a whole lot better. And are you going to give some of those guys money? Probably not. Like that's the other thing Chip Kelly needs to realize. Like you better like shoot some sunshine up your butthole real fast, buddy, because it is coming to where the time of the head coach being like, I just coach football. I'm just an X and O guy, and I'm just trying to get it done on the gridiron. That's over. Like you have to go and you have to sit in front of rich people and you have to slap their back and tell them good old stories, or that money's not coming.
Yeah, and losing Dante Moore really, really didn't help because, it's great to get that top recruit quarterback. But if you let him slip away after one season, it makes you look kind of bad. Yeah.
Oh, it does. And so I think he needs one really badly.
I mean, Sam Pittman in Arkansas.
Sam Pittman needs one really badly. Like Chip Kelly, Dave Aranda, Sam Pittman are hot seat guys, as where Neil Brown and Mario Cristobal, and I only say this about Neil Brown because I know their athletic director pretty well. I don't think he's an ultimatum dude unless like he's pushed into it. Ren Baker, he's got more of like a whole world vision of things. And plus he already has to deal with basketball enough and everything that went on there and is going to go on there in the future and figure out what the future of that sport is. West Virginia might be the rare school that loves both those sports equally.
It's up there. I think Louisville at this point you could probably make the card, but
like
Louisville, it's very rare.
Yeah, like there's not like you're either like we love football and we really like basketball, or like I don't know what Baylor is. I have no idea. I can't really get a read on it.
I think it's a pendulum swing with Baylor.
But like West Virginia loves them both equally. Like how you should love your kids, but as we're like Texas A&M. Like loves football and like Buzz Williams is a great kid, but do whatever you want, Buzz.
Yeah,
whatever. Like to get noticed, basketball has to come home with like a girl with a tattoo on her face, and you're like, oh hey, what's going on here? But I think those guys are hot seat guys. There are guys that I think Lincoln like. I don't think he's getting fired anytime soon, but I think to get his rep back, Lincoln Riley needs to have a good year.
Oh,
he
without
needs
a doubt.
I mean, the last, okay, Caleb Williams is able to win you a bunch of games, but you were still lost 3 games with him when he won the Heisman Trophy because your defense was terrible. Then you have him back, and you're worse because your defense is somehow worse than it was, and you went and got new people because you did not face the problem, which it's probably not the dudes. Like, at USC, you're going to get guys who are bigger, stronger, faster just by accident. Mm-hmm. And when you have those guys that everyone else wants and you're not winning, then it's not on the guys anymore. It's on the scheme. And he made that decision to keep Alex Grinch until – and I still kind of believe he was probably forced to make that decision. But Danton Lynn is really good. They made a very interesting hire in bringing in Matt Entz from North Dakota State, the head coach there, as their linebackers coach and assistant head coach or associate head coach. Can't remember which one of those it was. But, yeah, he needs a good year to show that, like, yes, I am one of the elite coaches in this country. And he needs to roll into the Big Ten and make a statement of, hey, your old school ways of football are done, and this conference runs through Los Angeles now.
And as of right now, he's going to be doing it without a quarterback that everyone in the country knows is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the last one I'll think of that's not necessarily a hot seat guy, and I just want to mention him quickly, but Prime at Colorado, that magical fairy dust that sprinkled on that first 3-4 games, it went away and it got really bad.
You gotta have some steak with that sizzle, right? He knows that. Like, I think the difference that, like, Prime haters, like, don't think he knows that. Like, he knows. Like, he knows he's got to have some steak with that sizzle. But, they their wins at the beginning of the season were a TCU team that everyone's like, that was shocking. Well, it turns out they weren't that good, right? And then Nebraska, who was in the same exact position as they were, so that's not that big of a deal. And then barely beating your in-state rival, Colorado State, who also wasn't that good, losing to Stanford, who wasn't that good. Like, those things happen, and then you won 1-8 in the Pac-12. Well, things are going to change because you're going to the Big 12 and you have a second year to figure out what you want to be and the guys you're going to get in there and have some stability in the program. But, yeah, eventually, because you can't create the biggest show in college football in Boulder, but it just be about what happens before that. Like,
it was just a botched facelift because
is that the Rock and Wiz Khalifa? Holy cow! Like, that's only works for your fans for so long before you're like, hey, are we gonna beat Arizona State, or is that a thing that's not gonna happen? So you got to have some substance to go with the style. I think he knows that, but he's also learning. Like, it's easy to get like 7 to 10, FBS guys to come down to Jackson State and then roll through Jackson State because you've got players like Travis Hunter and Shadur and shit, like different. Those guys who are different because the talent level's different. And then when you go up and those guys are playing on the level they should be playing on, well, like, you can't fill out the rest of the roster with with cast-offs, because a lot of those guys were cast-offs. Now, I do think they'll be better, especially along the lines than they were, because you can't be much worse. So they've got nowhere to go but up, but he's going to make some coaching staff changes. He's forced to, because Sean Lewis is the head coach at San Diego State. To go back to last segment, also a hire I really like. But, yeah, he's going to, you can be the show all you want, but you really, you have to have a powerful ending, That's right. He's not had that yet. But again, 4-8 in year one was pretty good for a 1-11, and maybe I say this knowing how bad some of those Kansas teams were over the years before Lance Leipold got there. Mm-hmm. Maybe the worst constructed roster in the history of modern college football was that 1-11 Colorado team.
Yeah, you're not lying.
Yeah, considering that Lance Leipold didn't clean out that many of those guys when he came in and started winning a little quicker, and Dion was like, no, I need 80 of you guys out the door. Like, that's how bad that roster was constructed. When we come back, who's the next transfer portal quarterback to make the big decision, and where do you think it's going to be? This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Well, speaking of transfer quarterbacks, as we did just a minute ago, Talon Green of Boise State, Garrett, he is on his way to Arkansas.
Interesting.
Yes. He just announced his transfer there. He was the 2022 Mountain West Freshman of the Year. 316 total yards, 4 touchdowns in that title game, and the offensive MVP. He is on his way to help Sam Pittman save his job with the Arkansas Razorbacks, meaning also that a thing we had planned I have to change because I was going to use him on a graphic for a thing we're going to do later in the week. So, but yes, he has committed, as has former Michigan State quarterback Sam Levitt is on his way to Arizona State. So that happened as well. And Jake Rubley, formerly of Kansas State, who was a 4-star recruit, is on his way to the Illinois State Cardinals. I'm sorry. Illinois State Redbirds. Redbirds, Cardinals. Let's get some different mascots in here, people. Some originality. But Talon Green on his way. So who's the next big one to declare or to pick where they're going? And I actually love the Talon Green signing for Arkansas. I think that's the guy you go get if you're Arkansas.
Yeah. Need all the help they can get.
Yeah, similar style to KJ Jefferson. Yeah. I get it.
But KJ Jefferson is not in the portal yet. He's deciding on what to do, but I don't think he's going to be back.
There's nothing left there for him to do.
So he's either going to try his wares in the pros or use his last year of eligibility to go somewhere else. So of the top guys in the portal,
I mean, it seems predetermined that Riley Leonard will end up at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. It just seems that way. The way it was Sam Hartman last year.
Yeah, I think it's a great fit too.
Yeah,
I think it's a very good fit. I think Riley Leonard is a little bit better than Sam Hartman, at least, or more athletic than Sam Hartman. So he's probably the more efficient or athletic version of that. And Notre Dame got Bo Collins, wide receiver from Clemson, out of the transfer portal. I think that's really good because they really need to address that position that's been rated. We saw Dylan Gabriel go to Oregon, which I'm sure is going to work out great for the Ducks. Get 1 year of Dylan Gabriel. Austin Novosad gets to sit another year, and you can recruit other 5-star quarterbacks. And
yeah, that's the thing. I wonder how long. To me, it's almost inevitable Novosад's going to hit the portal.
Well, Ty Thompson, their other quarterback, he's in the portal now too. So, On 3 is forecasting. You mentioned USC. Will Howard, USC. They're forecasting that. I don't know if that'll stick though.
I don't think that's a fit. Like that doesn't seem like a right fit for what Lincoln Riley likes. Will Howard,
but.
I've got one that people I don't think are talking all that much about, but it's Cam Ward from Washington State.
I think they're waiting to decide if he's going to go to the pros or, go to, a big boy school.
In this,
he's the best one available.
In this NFL QB class, I think he would be smart to go back to college for another year.
I think he'd be like 7th.
I think he could be top 5 if he stays in college for.
Yeah, but like I think he'd be like 7th of the like if you're talking about Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy. Those are the guys who are going to be out there. Like he would have a tough job cracking, like getting over any one of those guys right now.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of speculation, at least not publicly, that I'm finding on
no, there's
where he'll
not.
go.
He hasn't said a word. He hasn't taken a visit yet. I don't think he's taken a visit yet.
But do you think Texas A&M would be a fit for him?
Maybe. But I mean, I think they like what they've got going on with Connor Wigman. He just, got hurt. That wasn't their problem, really. I think that's more Ohio State or FSU, and that depends also. Like, I think FSU is deciding between him and DJ Uiagalelei, and DJU is probably gonna have to wait on Cam Ward. So like those are the ones, but. And I think Cam Ward's decision will come later this week because I don't think you're gonna like push this out all that long. But his recruitment is going to be, I think, also pretty secretive because this is not just about like, hey, where's the best fit for me to get ready for the NFL and blah blah blah. This is about also
that money
getting paid. Which is going to be probably upwards of $1.5 million to $2 million for Cam Ward. He's going to be that guy who gets that check. So. I also expect to see Kyle McCord. I think Nebraska and Kyle McCord makes a lot of sense. And he's got 1 year left, and that's a good bridge. Like Matt Rule needs a bridge quarterback to get him to, okay, let's get the recruit in here, the guy you can develop and all that, because that was a nightmare for them this year at that particular position. Oh, look at this. Another one I think has come in. I think Chandler Rogers. Baylor fans are not going to like this.
Oh, is he going to TCU?
Nope.
Oh.
He has committed to Cal.
Really?
Yes. He is going to Cal. So.
Well, ACC football.
I mean,
yes.
All right.
I personally, you mentioned Baylor. I don't personally see a real fit, and I don't see Baylor making any kind of a splash.
I mean, they're got to go get somebody.
They
but
do.
That was the one I thought was going to be the best for them. But Will Rogers.
I thought Will Rogers went to.
No, he's nowhere yet. So he visited Washington.
Okay, I thought he was going. Yeah, that one made no sense to me.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
But do you really want to double dip at Mississippi State and then have Blake Shapen go to Mississippi State? Like that seems kind of weird.
That was basically a trade.
I know. Yeah. Braden Shager from Hawaii is an interesting one.
I think he actually Timmy Chang. I think he actually came out and said that was a false report.
Well, he's in the portal.
Oh,
so he may not be necessarily leaving, but he's in the portal. So speaking of TCU to Cal, Sam Jackson, who transferred from TCU to Cal just a year ago, or 2 years ago, in the portal as a grad transfer again. So we'll see where he winds up. So so some of these decisions are starting to come down.
I think Grayson McCall going to South Carolina would make a lot of sense.
I think NC State and UCF are the leaders for him right now, but you never know. I think UCF needs to go get him.
Oh, him at UCF would be ridiculous.
That would be great for him. He would do really, really well at UCF. So, we mentioned Aiden Childs earlier. I think he's just good. I think that would be the easiest transit. Like, if you're Jonathan Smith, you go get a guy like Aiden Childs. You're going to sign a freshman. In this recruiting cycle for sure, and then you can go find another guy who can be kind of a veteran backup for you. That can fit in.
Mm-hmm. What about Dante Moore? He's leaving UCLA, but he's from Michigan. You think he wants to play Big Ten football?
I do. I think I think Ohio State, Michigan. He's my top 5 today, by the way. I know Miami's going to visit there. Dante Moore is probably going to take 75 visits.
Probably.
Because
he can.
Because he can.
Because he's the belle of the ball.
Yeah. He's, was the number 1-rated quarterback, depending on what you looked at. Like it was either him or Jaden Rashada. So he's got ability, and he was a 5-star guy just a year ago. He played fairly well for a true freshman. He turned the ball over a little bit too much, but that's what true freshmen do. And UCLA was not as good as, they lost more than they realized, I mean, heck, DTR, heck of a player.
Yes.
Really. Like I sometimes like I knew he was really good, but like he's a good player.
Yeah,
like you lose that. You lose, Charbonnet, like they lost Jake Bobo, his one of their better wide receivers is, like they've got all these guys he had a pretty good like roster that would have competed this year a lot better in the Pac-12, and they all, were in the league. So when you've got a roster full of NFL players, then it's all of a sudden just gone. So I don't know. There'll be some interesting ones coming down here in the next couple of days. And
let me go ahead and bore you with another one. What about Tyler Van Dyke?
Tyler Van Dyke is going to have to wait until maybe he's not. I think he's visiting Wisconsin.
Yeah, he's a guy who I think needs to find a place quickly.
Yeah. And he needs to find a coach who can teach him how to not throw interceptions. Because he in 2021 was one of the better quarterbacks in the country and was on an ascendancy. 2022, really banged up. Started this year okay, and then could not stop turning the ball over. Non-stop for the Hurricanes. It was his problem. He comes in the last quarter against FSU, and they're like, well, he's been benched because of turnovers. He threw the third pass, got picked off. I mean, so it didn't even take, a minute for him to fall right back into what was going on. So he's one who needs a bump for sure. So Will Rogers is one I'm curious to see what happens. If his elbow is okay, he's going to help you, but if his elbow is not okay, then it's going to be one of those kind of a bummer things.
Yeah, the way watching him down the stretch, he couldn't put any velocity at all on his deep ball. I would be real nervous. I need to see him for sure healthy before I even risk giving him an opportunity. That's just me.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're going to hear it. When I started this segment, 3 of these decisions had not been made, and then they were. So I teased it. Boom, you had guys, Chandler Rogers gone. Sam Jackson in the portal. What was the other commitment we just announced? And Taylon Green.
Yes, Taylon Green.
I was really, really intrigued by a guy who was on the up coming out of the Mountain West. Well, Jacob, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you again very soon. And, next Monday for sure. In fact, you're going to be
here
for that. So thanks to Jacob Wilson. Thanks to Garrett Ross. Thanks to all of you for watching today on 365 Sports. We will talk about Colorado with Brian Howell, the Bowler Daily Camera, and how the first offseason under Dion has brought about a lot of changes, including maybe Pat Shurmur taking over some of the recruit. They get big recruiting wins and huge recruiting losses. It is absolutely just a pendulum swinging back and forth at Colorado right now. Stephen Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We'll talk about the firing of Joe Gillespie. Baylor's latest commitment, KT Thomas from Northeast Mississippi Community College. He's a linebacker. He'll be on the show today. And Ryan Abraham from Inside Troy talks about USC and their interesting offseason of hiring defensive coordinators and defensive coaches. This is 365 Sports and the Triple Option.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that